Real quick, I want to thank everyone for watching, liking, commenting, all that great stuff. I really didn't expect the Gotham Knights video to pop off as hard as it did. It might actually have a higher viewership than that god-awful CW Gotham Knights TV show.
It's your father. He's dead.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Anyway, let's get into it. Remnant from the Ashes came out in August 2019, and it completely flew under my radar. I was just more into multiplayer pew-pew games and Minecraft of all games. I just really didn't pay much attention to many single-player games at the time. But I've been fiending for Soulslikes after playing Elden Ring, so I picked up Remnant during a Steam sale, and let me tell you, I loved it. So far, I've only played the main game through once with my lovely girlfriend and a bit on my own, so I have a decent understanding of the mechanics. And with Remnant 2 around the corner, I want to tell you why you should care about Remnant from the Ashes. Okay, the first reason is a huge reason. It's a feature that makes Remnant's replayability damn near infinite. It's the randomly generated world. Now, to my understanding, it's not completely procedural generation like No Man's Sky or Minecraft, but it's more like Warframe, where there are tiles or rooms that are pre-made and each level has a different arrangement of them. So while two players may not have the same map, they will have the same set pieces, just in different locations. Loot is randomized, and you won't get every piece of loot the game has to offer in one playthrough. In order to get everything, you'd have to re-roll and play the campaign again. You still get to keep all of your previous gear when you re-roll the campaign. The game almost incentivizes re-rolling, as you can get different kinds of loot every time. Even bosses have a randomized order, and some may not even appear in a playthrough. This whole randomization thing is hard for my pea-brain to grasp, but I've played some Warframe in my day, so I kind of get how this works. Progressing from level to level is pretty linear, but there are a ton of branching paths. I didn't know I was going the right way until I unlocked a new level or story event. There's an overworld that serves as a way to lay out the many dungeons for that level. There's never any direct guidance on where to go, so I basically just hit up every dungeon in the level, and eventually I'd find the one dungeon that had a boss and progressed me to the next level, where I rinsed and repeated ad nauseum until the end game. It's a fairly basic progression path, but side dungeons had enough rewards to keep me enjoying the game. Anyway, another reason I love the game is its combat system. The movement speed is pretty slow, and the game puts a large focus on dodging enemy attacks while returning fire. It's a system I find to be incredibly addicting. As you can probably tell, it takes some inspiration from a certain Souls type game, but it spices things up with guns. That's right, we get to play as Gwyn with the Gat, the strapped undead. I couldn't have imagined how mixing souls with guns would work, but they've pulled it off somehow with Remnant. There's tons of different weapons to buy in the store, find in dungeons, or craft with boss drops, and you can upgrade them using materials you find throughout the world. All of them feel unique, and they have their own place and playstyle. Personally, I used the coach rifle for a lot of the game, but closer to the end I started maining the hunting rifle because it had more than 2 bullets and didn't reload like a musket. On top of that, there are special abilities that you can find or craft that give your gun a special move. My favorite is the one that spawns a healing circle and the one that spawns a monster that helps you out. It just adds a lot to the gameplay depth, switching between primary and handguns and using the abilities while simultaneously dodging and returning fire. It's a lot for my ADHD brain to handle. Oh, and there's also melee weapons that have regular and charged attacks. You can't attach any weapon ability mod to melee weapons, but some weapons have a special ability when using a charged attack. You can also make your own builds centered around melee combat if you use the right talismans and armor. Personally, I just didn't feel like melee combat was as fun as shooting, so I only use it as a last resort. One of the greatest aspects of this game, in my opinion, is its co-op focused gameplay. The game is fun enough on your own, but playing with a team, whether it be your own friends or randoms, is a ton of fun. You can coordinate your abilities and strategies on fighting bosses or exploring a dungeon. It's just a blast. And having someone to revive you when you die makes the game a bit easier. But it does cost a dragon heart to revive someone, which is the game's Estus, or health flask, and it only recharges once you get to a bonfire. I played through the campaign with my lovely girlfriend, and while she's incredibly directionally challenged,
Stop yelling at me! No, it's not yelling! There's no room here!
once we got to a boss, we just had a great time trying over and over to figure out the boss's gimmicks and what weapons we should use. And once we finally beat the boss, it was just such a great feeling. Which leads me to my next point. The boss fights. While they don't have the fluidity or seamless transitions from animation to animation like Sekiro or Elden Ring, they have their own gimmicks which makes each boss a unique challenge. For example, we fought a boss that would spawn a wave of minions that would just run up to you and explode, so we had to time ourselves and make sure we killed them before they got to us. or another boss that spawns 2 towers that have to be destroyed before we can deal damage. My personal favorite was the Dream Eater. He did this clone jutsu thing where he duplicates everywhere and charges up an undodgeable attack that deals massive damage. And basically what you have to do is you have to find the real boss in the sea of clones and deal enough damage to break his charge up. And the even cooler thing about these bosses is that you won't encounter all of them in one single playthrough. The randomly generated campaign just isn't long enough to fit all of them. So replaying or re-rolling the campaign will alter the order of bosses and what bosses you encounter. Although one critique I have for the bosses is how much they rely on minions to add difficulty. Most bosses would probably be a breeze if they didn't constantly spam their minions, forcing me to waste ammo and time taking them out. But regardless, these bosses all add a great spice to the game, and while I haven't gotten to all of them yet, I had a blast fighting the ones that I have fought. Another thing I want to brush over is the backstory of Remnant. It's a lot like Dark Souls in how mysterious it is, so I don't want to spoil the fun of trying to piece together the lore of each world this game has to offer. But what I will say is that there's a lot of dialogue and notes around the world that will explain how the world ended up in the state that it's in, and that all of it was intriguing enough to leave me wanting more. To conclude, this is a game that you should not make the mistake of sleeping on like I did. It's a Soulslike with guns that offers so much more. The weapon customization and upgrade system is deep enough to keep me engaged, and there's a lot of fun in trying different weapon and ability combos. The world being randomized in its layout, loot, dungeons, and even bosses keeps the game fresh and endlessly replayable. The co-op is the way the game is meant to be played in my opinion. Fighting bosses and getting lost in the maze of dungeons is all the more compelling with friends, or even randoms, and that is why you should not sleep on this game. Seriously, give it a try, you won't regret it. This game is usually on sale on Steam, but it's definitely worth full price. And with Remnant 2 around the corner, now's the perfect time to play. Anyway, that's about all I have. Take it easy.